1 minute late is not late, Megan.
In Switzerland it is. Hi, Donna. How are you?
I'm good, Megan. How are you?
I am very, very good. Yeah, for our listeners' benefit, we were just sitting here chatting away. I'm like, oh shit, it's 2 o'clock. We got to start. Okay.
Oh man.
So
Yes.
welcome to the So Frickin' Healthy podcast. Donna and I are certified health coaches. Donna's also recently wonderfully certified as a functional health coach. Wow, chicka bow bow. Good job. Good job.
Thank
And
you.
that took a long time. How long did it take for you to finish that certification?
No, that one was a very full on year. It was a
Whoa.
very full on year. But it was
Yeah.
helpful that I worked with so many functional medicine doctors in the past. That
Mhm.
definitely helped. But
Yeah.
we're
But
at it
in
again.
all of that, Donna and I are neither psychologists, we're not medical professionals. We're just two awesome women who love to talk about all things health and wellness. So please take all that with a grain of salt and don't do anything stupid.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. Okay, today we're talking about self-discovery. And what does self-discovery mean for you, Donna?
Self-discovery to me means knowing yourself better and therefore being able to take care of others better
Mhm.
because you're taking care of yourself better, if that makes any sense. I said better so many times. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I was, me and my research. Donna joins and Megan does research, but this is, I think, really gives us the good balance for these episodes. So I looked up the dictionary, there is a definition in the dictionary of self-discovery. So I
I'm
looked
sure.
this up just to see, like, are we using it correctly in the frame of health and wellness? And it says the act or process of gaining knowledge or understanding of your abilities, character, and feelings, which I thought actually was a pretty good
On the
definition.
nose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the nose. Yeah. So those of you who are listening live, hi mom.
Hi, Mom.
Feel free to drop some questions in the chat as we go along, and we will try to answer those. And yeah, and then if you're listening later on, do feel free to also drop some questions into the chat, and we will get back to you. Or you can email us at sofrickinhealthy@gmail.com. Donna's laughing because I have mastered the restream process now for live streaming. She's just like, her mind is blown. For those of you who are listening later on in the podcast version, I'm putting up banners and graphics, and Donna's just like, her mind is like,
Fully. Yep. 100%. Well done. I love it.
all right. Okay, so let's get into the first part of this. We have three topics today around self-discovery. So let's just talk a little bit more about what self-discovery is. Donna, what do you do with your clients? You focus a lot on food and nutrition.
And
And
lifestyle.
from
Yeah.
that frame of mind, what is the self-discovery for your the kind of self-discovery that you do with your clients in that frame of mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what brings to a lot of self-discovery with my clients is just kind of asking the right questions, right? So, you know, getting to know the client better, understanding if family is a big, topic or a big part of their world, or if it's their career, or if it's their physical activity. Every single person has their own passion and something that they either love to do or are dreaming of doing, right? That's what they want, and that's their kind of like dream life, whatever that may be. So getting in touch with that, I think, is really important. Understanding what their kind of life is at the moment, and what their life, if they could take a magic pill and life would just be the perfection that they want it to be, what that would be like. And in terms of nutrition, I think it's definitely, you know, a lot of people do come to me for that, although we do talk a lot about every single aspect of their lifestyle. Um, it's again, it comes down to, is it my family that I want to feed a healthier diet? Is it my kid who has ADD and I need to support him nutritionally? Is it my husband who has high cholesterol that I need to, whatever, you know? So it's kind of looking at their health history and understanding from them also what they are looking to tackle. And that already gives me a good indication of what area of self-discovery we need to also focus on for that person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we've talked about it in the past. Well, actually just last week when we were talking about leaky gut, you know, I think we talked about it a lot in terms of self-discovery. And that's why the topic came up today when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about. I'm like, you know, we've been touching on this topic of self-discovery a lot. And what does it mean to know yourself better, or to listen to your body and that kind of thing. And I feel like I was trying to pinpoint when it was that I started to like listen to my body and actually think and reflect on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it sounds stupid because you're living with yourself all the time. You know whether you like green beans or not. Yeah, I mean, those are the easy stuff, but that's kind of like the skimming the surface of the water. Like, what kind of foods do you like? What kind of movies do you like? And you know, what activities do you like? This is all self-knowledge and self-discovery, but it's kind of like the surface stuff that comes because you are living in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like that you know, somebody asks you to do something, you go do that activity, and then later on you're like, I didn't really like that. I like that person, but I don't like doing that activity. And that's self-knowledge, right? That's self-discovery. But I tried to pinpoint when it was that I really started to think about myself. And it had to have been in and around 2018 when I was doing the IIN health coaching certification in that year. And they do a lot of activities in that and exercises in that course as you're becoming a health coach to also help you understand how these activities work. And I think for me, it was such a revelation. And I say doing that course changed my life because it taught me how to listen to my body, and it taught me how to know myself better in a way that I could start to articulate what I wanted out of my life. And so was the IIN school like so amazing? No, it was the fact that during that time, I was doing these exercises and learning about myself and realizing the power that you have also as a coach to help other people discover themselves, to provide those tools to people so that they can have that same, oh my gosh, moment several times when they start to understand themselves better and go, oh, that's why the last 5 relationships didn't work, or that's why I don't like this type of job, but you know what I mean? Or that's why I do like this kind of job, or that's why this relationship did work and the other ones didn't. I mean, not to focus on negative, you also, you know, focus on the positive, what things work. So for me, I was trying to pinpoint that. Do you remember like a specific time where you were like really started to know yourself better?
Yeah, I think there were a couple, but just before I even share that, there's something that you said which really kind of triggered something in me. We also have to notice how many things that we use to characterize ourselves are actually things that we heard our loved ones say over and over again, and that's why it became our thing, and not because we are actually, you know, that's not our self-discovery. It's someone else who tagged us in a certain way. You're lazy, you're, you know, super active, you're whatever, smart, you're stupid. It doesn't actually even matter what it is. So just wanted to kind of bring that up because I noticed that a lot of things that we say and a lot of things that we say to our kids, they pick up on as like, that's a fact, this is who I am, when in fact it might not actually be. For me, I think there were a couple of times in my life where I had these periods of times of self-discovering myself, I guess, or the first time was discovering myself. The second time was rediscovering who I then was. The first time was probably when I moved out of my parents' house and back to Israel. So they were living in the States. I moved away, went to a kibbutz with a random group of people, went to the army, had my first proper boyfriend. And so that time I realized that I was all of a sudden not tied down to those tags that my parents gave me and those stereotypes that my parents gave me. And I felt like I was flourishing because I really did learn, oh, wait, I actually like this and I'm actually doing it that way. And I'm actually not bad at this and I'm actually not good at that. Right. And so that was a huge, huge, huge eye opener for me. I think that whole period of time from that moment. So when I was about 17 until I was a good, 27, I think that was a very solid 10 years of my life where I was just trying to figure myself out for myself.
Yeah.
The second time, which was, I think, even more awakening. That's a very hippy dippy word, but I'm the hippie, so I'm allowed. I had a huge awakening when after I had my two kids. So I did talk about this in my podcast, in the podcast episode about this, getting to know me. But when I had both boys at a very short amount of time, and I was suffering from depression, and I was suffering from literally pain from head to toe, and overweight, and just everything that you can think of, I had this realization. Very quickly, the story was, I told my husband that I'm going for a long weekend because I just couldn't fathom living anymore another minute in the situation that we lived in. I went for a long weekend with a friend. He had to replace me with like 7 people. And for me, that moment of just understanding that I am a very important core that is holding on to this family together, and the core of the caregiving of the family, and that if I'm not around, this place will fall apart most likely, because who has 7 people constantly being able to help you? That's when I started my self-discovery, because that's when I said, you know what? I may be a mom and I may be a wife, but who am I? And what is important to me, and where am I in this world where I'm Danna and not a mom and a wife, right? So I wanted to break free from that title of being people being relying on me, but rather like, who am I? So that was definitely something that started the ball going for me in the functional medicine realm, but also in the self-discovery realm, where, that was just a life-changing for me, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's I think when you're in a position like you are, where you have dependents, people who are relying on you, or you're responsible for them, I think that self-discovery takes on that second level of not losing who you are in all of those roles that you play, right? And I feel like a lot of times, especially mothers, but it can happen also with fathers or let's just say parents in general, they're focused very, very much on their child's life. A lot of times the world revolves around the children, their schedule and everything else. And then the children are gone, and that whole empty nest thing. The empty nest thing is, those parents going, well, who are we without the responsibility of our children to take care of? Right. And that's why I think it's super important, especially for parents or any kind of caregivers, because I think caregivers, especially in general, whether you're taking care of yourself or other people, your children or somebody else, have a tendency to put everybody else ahead of themselves and not really know what they would like to do or who they are without that role.
Yeah, and I find that it's even more severe because a lot of times we as caregivers also put aside our own health. So, it deteriorates, right? And then when you're not dealing with your own health, you're putting them at a bigger risk. And it's very hard to understand that taking care of yourself will mean taking care of others better. right? We've grown up being told that if you think about yourself first, you're being selfish, right? Whereas when you're thinking about yourself first, you're making sure that you know yourself and you know what you need and you know where you're able to take care of others better and you're able to say, look, stop, no, I don't want to burn out, I don't want to, explode, I don't want to come to a breaking point, because then it's a much harder kind of point, like almost a point of no return. I don't believe in that, but like there's a point where it's so much harder to go back to where you want to be.
Yeah. Cool. But just before we move on to the next kind of segment here, I also think that, and I've been thinking about this lately, is about young people, about the 16 to 24-ish range, right? So 16, they're kind of, they could live on their own. They're adults. They are capable, right? Not maybe fully functioning yet, but still they're pretty much have their own thoughts and ideas. I mean, it happens earlier than that, but I think 16 is a good age. And I think that, again, this is something that's not really, maybe the school system's different now, but it's not really something where children are taught or young people are taught how to do this process, how to know themselves. And as older people, they'll just learn it with time, life experience. Like that's what I hear in air quotes, life experience. You don't have enough life experience to know who you are. But that's not a good thing to say. I think that people of that age know who they are. Maybe they can't articulate it, but it's, again, I think it doesn't matter if you're 65 or you're 25, if you haven't taken the time to really think about it. And I think that's where the life experience comes in, is because you have more experiences to then build your database of data points to go, oh, I don't like this, or I do like that, right? So I think it happens more naturally for the 65-year-old to know what they want. But I think it's more important for the 16-year-old to know who they are, what they like, what they want, or to know, oh, I don't know that yet because I haven't had that experience. So let's go have that experience and let's figure out if I like it, right? And that's part of what we'll get into in a minute. But I'm really focusing now more on young people. Maybe this is because my nephew's 18. No, he's 19 now.
I figured. No, you know what? And again, don't get me started about the school system. I don't want to even talk about that because that will start a whole new conversation where Danna's not happy. But I think you're right. I think there's definitely things that we're unable to yet learn about ourselves at age 16 just because we haven't ripened enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even the life experience per se, but it's just that as a 16-year-old, our hormones are bouncing off the walls, our emotions are bouncing off the walls. Our brain is not yet fully formed, right? So it's a little bit harder to kind of understand what the fuck is going on and who's against who in this world. But it definitely, I see why you're kind of talking about 16 plus. It definitely, I think, starts there. And I kind of noticed that for myself when I was in the Army at age 18 to 20. And then leaving the Army, I mean, it was a very rigid, very kind of like, freaking Army. It's what you think it is. And then leaving the Army and going traveling and meeting other 20-year-olds from across the world, from Australia all the way to, like California. You notice that, yes, there is definitely, the life experience definitely does something. It does make you understand things a little bit differently for yourself and others. And also being outside of the realm of, when you're in uniform, you're part of a group and you lose your individuality. You lose your a little bit of yourself. And then you come out to the world and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? Yeah. Who's what, where am I? What am I doing in this world? What do I want for myself? And so that's why a lot of people in Israel, a lot of kids, really 20-year-olds in Israel, just get up and leave right after the Army because they need to discover themselves. All right. So it is, we actually call it the self-discovery trip, because we are trying to figure out what now. We went into the Army right after high school. We're coming out, we're considered adults, right? We're
Mhm.
supposed to find a job. We're supposed to start our life. We're supposed to rent a house and buy a car and whatever else we need to do. And how the hell do you do that? Because you don't really know what's
Yeah.
going on.
And but I think even if it's unfortunate, because the way that at least the US system works, you know, by 16, you kind of have to start thinking about what you want to do with your life, right? Because you need to start applying for colleges, and you need to apply to the colleges that make sense for what you want to do. And so
Yeah.
that's why I kind of picked that age. And it's also why I think that it's a really important point in someone's life to start self-discovery. And they're almost forced to start to
Yeah.
understand and just, you know, and I think it's a shame. Actually, I like that idea of doing something immediately after high school that has nothing to do with your career choices, whether it's traveling or army or some other kind of something where you can say, okay, I'm going to learn more about myself, and then go to college a year or 2 years later so that you really understand what you want to do with your life. And see, that's the thing. That's why I can pinpoint that time in my life in 2018 where I'm like, oh, now I really know what I really want to do as far as work goes. Because I'm like, I didn't, up until then, I was kind of just like swimming. I was swimming with the current, and wherever the stream was going, that's where I went. Now I was fortunate that the current took me in really great directions, but it was nothing because of me knowing what I wanted out of my life. It was just right place, right time, good attitude, optimistic personality, and being a white female. I mean, these were my advantages. I mean, other than that, I would just like, it was luck, and I'm here, right? Nothing of my own. Let's say, I'm not saying I'm downgrading who I am, but I'm definitely saying I did not have a vision for that I was going to be here. I mean, some people are like, I want to be outside, I want to go to see the world, or I want to like stay at home and I want to build a family, or I want to do this. And they have this vision. And I think that that's great. And I think that when I see young people who are so laser focused, I think, wow, what a position to be in, to know exactly enough about yourself to know that that's the direction that you want to go in your life. And of course, that's going to change. Self-discovery is a journey, right? What you want at age 15, 16 is different than where you are at 25 and 35 and so on. So that's why I think it's definitely a journey. It's definitely not like a one and done thing. It's kind of like a every couple years checking in with yourself type of thing.
Yes.
But let's move on then to the next part, which is why, and we've kind of alluded a little bit to this, but why is self-discovery an important part of living your best life? For this, I think we've touched on several things already, but I mean, I think the major points are knowing your physical body better helps you have a healthy existence. Like your best physical body is being managed because you're listening to yourself after you've eaten different foods, and like what we talked about last week with elimination diets, or taking things out, putting things in. That's an activity. You have meditation, mindset type of activities that you can do to help calm your brain, your mind, and figure out like kind of your feelings and emotions a bit better. You have this kind of self-discovery of the work that you do, because that's a big part of your life, whatever work means for you, right? Whatever effort you put in. So from your perspective, what are some other ways that self-discovery helps us live our best life?
So the best way I can think about it is actually our older podcast interviews that we've done with other experts, right? We talked to Kelly, who is a relationship expert, and she was actually talking a lot about self-discovery and actually knowing yourself before you actually dive in. Because if you don't know yourself, how would the external person know you and get to know you and understand what your needs and wants are, right? So it's definitely embedded in relationships. I was thinking about Martin, who was talking about the heart brain connection, right? If we're going against what we want, or stress, or right, if we don't understand what are the stress factors in our lives, or if we don't understand what it is that is our that makes our heart beat, right? If it's career, right? If we're doing something for years and years that we don't enjoy, just like Martin was talking about his own career, then you're not going to be a healthy person. You're not going to be a happy person, no matter how good you eat or how good you sleep. Okay. So I think that, it just literally brings me back to all of these experts that we talked to. And I'm sure if I think a little bit more, I'll probably name a couple of others. But I think it's important. It literally touches every single part in your world, right? It's what makes us a holistic human being, because we're at that core of this circle that is things that are surrounding our life: relationship, career, physical activity. Help me out here, right? Whatever the circle of life, which we'll touch. Those are all things that are making us or breaking us. And if we have a lot of these areas where we're just unhappy, and so we're walking around bitter in life, just dragging our feet and going like, my life sucks, but you don't actually understand, you don't have the bigger view of understanding, what is it? What is that? Where is that rotten apple? To remove it, or to get a new apple, right? Replace it with a better apple, preferably organic. And so it will infect, just like the rotten apple will infect other apples in that apple bag. The same thing goes for, replacing it, renewing the bag, making sure that you have nice, healthy apples in every kind of part of your life, in order to have a better view of the whole entire life as a whole.
Yeah. I've in my research, I found a few websites that had some really good articulations about like why self discovery is important. And I think to start off with, it is a fundamental point of self-growth. So if you if you're satisfied with your life, do you need to do self-discovery? No, nobody needs to do self-discovery. Self-discovery comes in when you say, I am not satisfied with my current situation, or maybe what could be better in my life. Maybe you're completely satisfied, but you're like, okay, what else can I bring into my life to make it extraordinary? And self-discovery is the very first thing you have to do in order to do anything in terms of your development as a person, or self-growth. Some of the points I found was like, one was being able to kind of name your feelings and understand where those feelings are coming from.
That's super important.
Big one.
Wow. It's huge.
Right? Because if you can take a step back and going, why does that particular thing make my heart race or make me angry? What about this situation is making me angry? Or what about the situation is making me happy? Like and it's interesting because some people find it very, very difficult to articulate what they're feeling.
Yes, we usually go for emotional eating instead.
Yes.
That's the main cause of emotional eating, is because we don't want to confront our emotions, for sure.
Another one was self-discovery helps you be able to speak up and stand up for yourself, right? And to know your self-worth, what you are worth in the world and to yourself and to other people. It's kind of like trying to sell a car and you don't know all of the bits and bops of the car. So how can you know how much to sell the car for, right? So it's kind of like, you need to know yourself better. And as soon as you know yourself better, then you can present yourself to the world in a more confident way of going, yes, I have these skills. I know I can do this. I am good at that. And it's not bragging. It's not boasting. It's self-awareness that these are things that you do really well, and you should share that with the world.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think for the last one I will point out here was because it goes to you always talk about this, but it's improving your levels of self-love. So it kind of can bring some peace to yourself, and because if you don't know why something is going on, that can actually be more frustrating than actually what the root cause is, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, do you want to elaborate on self-love?
Do you really want me to? I mean, like,
that's okay. I'm putting you on a timer now. Go. You have 2 minutes to talk about self-love.
Look, I think that self-love is the core of everything, and self-discovery needs to be the first step to self-love. I think that's the best way to kind of package it up, right?
Yeah.
If you don't discover things for yourself, you can't bring that self-love, because just like you said, you don't know any parts about that car. You don't know anything that's going on. So how can you actually love it? You haven't even test driven it. You don't know how it drives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you might say, like, but I do know how it drives. I've been in that body for 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Means nothing. I'm sorry, but it means nothing, because you can really change your life 180 degrees when you know more about yourself, self-discovery, and therefore can bring more self-love into the picture, which will then make your whole life a whole lot better, because you're now doing things not because a magazine told you to lose weight or to look this or that, but because you within yourself, you're doing it for the good of your own health, of your own body, of your own state of mind. So yeah, how long did that take?
No, not very long. It was good. I think you've talked about it enough that you're very articulate with it. But I think what you're getting there is also to your why, right?
Yeah.
Self-discovery. So you just touched on it there. It's not because of a magazine told you to do it, but because you have found that within yourself. And I think then it's the why. The why is not external anymore. The why is internal now.
Yes.
And you can decide what, where you want to go with that and how you want to do it, simply because you know yourself better. Or if you don't want to do it, one of the funniest not funny, haha. So I love Gretchen Rubin. I love her happiness and podcast and her books and everything. Do you know Gretchen Rubin? Have you heard of her?
I feel like I do, but if I see her face, I would say probably yes.
No, that is very sad. You either know Gretchen Rubin or you don't. So I will
I'm
have
very
to send
bad
you
with names. I'm very bad with names.
But she did the book called The Happiness Project, where she focused on one thing every month. And then she did the 4 tendencies, which is, I will talk about in a second with the how to get started with self-discovery, a personality type of quiz. Anyway, but it was interesting because they have her and her sister have a podcast that's been going on for probably 5 or 6 years now called Happier.
Mm-hmm.
And in her podcast, they have a typical segment called Know Yourself Better. And they would always give their listeners like a little, like, know yourself better, like, what's your favorite color? Or, like little things, just like tiny, tiny little things to know yourself better. I thought it was an excellent approach because it's nothing like major. It was like one simple question to ask yourself, and then you know yourself better. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because she's like, oh, everybody's like, oh, go camping. You'll love camping. Like everybody likes camping. And she's just like, no, I hate camping. I tried it once. I hate it. I won't do it again. Or bowling or whatever it was. It was like, there was like these stereotypical, like American pastime leisure events. And she's just like not having it. She's like, I don't want to, I just, no. I was just like, I was like, okay, yeah, no, I could see that. But it was just kind of like very, very much like, really, there are people that don't like doing that? And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people who don't like it, but do it because they think it should be fun. And so they keep giving it a try and they keep hating it, but they don't want to be the person who says, no, I don't like camping or whatever.
Every single time we went camping, and apparently we love camping. Every single time we went camping on the second day, we're like, why are we doing this? Can we go home now? I mean, my back hurts, my neck hurts. I didn't sleep all night. I hate this. It's, it's true. I mean, like, we're one of the only families in Switzerland probably who don't ski.
Yeah, we don't ski either.
Yeah. But everyone tells you, like, oh, Switzerland, you must ski. I'm like, no, I must not ski. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's one of those that I also agree with. Everybody's like, well, do you ski? And I'm like, no, I snowshoe I walk in the snow. I look at the beautiful snow. I wait in line with all the skiers to get to the beautiful snow, but I don't ski. Yeah.
I hibernate. I don't even do any of that.
We will have to make a date
No.
to go in January, February, somewhere in the mountains so that you can experience the wonderful blue skies and snow and sun of being in the mountains during the winter.
Oh,
It's
sweetie,
fantastic.
I lived in Interlaken for 2 whole years with a Swiss husband. Trust me, I got all of that. I love it. If it's sunny,
Yeah.
I'm
That's what I
there.
mean. I only go when it's sunny.
Yeah, and I don't move. I do not like to almost die
No,
constantly.
I like to go up and go to the place at the top and have a beer and get a suntan and enjoy the weather and the
So I
fresh
love
snow.
you.
All
That
right,
is
okay,
exactly why I love you.
little tangent. Okay, so we were just talking about then why self-discovery is important. So let's move on to the next part, which is how does one get started with self-discovery? I mean, I remember clearly mine. That's why I asked you about yours. And I have a feeling that some people who are listening maybe need a starting point, like if you're interested in how to get started with this. And there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, just Google self-discovery and you will have a lot of things. But I think the best way to start is very simple, and there's a few different ones. So number one, I think the easiest thing to do is to journal. You don't need anything but your computer or a piece of paper and a pencil and a few journaling prompts, a few things, questions that will help you think about things. So that's like the basic. The basic is just giving yourself some space and having an interesting question to let yourself ponder. You might ponder while you go for a walk. You might ponder while you meditate. You might ponder while you're, knitting or doing some other kind of handicraft where you don't have to think. You just, and allow your mind to wander, and then you can journal about this. Do you journal, Donna?
I don't journal. I journal a lot in my own head, which doesn't count, unfortunately. I don't, and so this is why when you said it, I was like, yes, this is something that I think is really important for those who that resonates with. For me, it would be easier if I just left voice messages because I'm quicker at that.
That's a form of journaling. Yeah, like
exactly.
No, I think that's. I didn't mention that in my form, but yeah, digital or analog. I think either way. But I think the whole point is the act of sitting and thinking about it, and then recording in some way or shape or form your thoughts and feelings on that. You may never go back and look at it again. You may never
and it doesn't
watch
matter.
it again. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. And I think, for me, I think what helped, or let's just say that I think tools that are really helpful, especially, of course, when you don't have someone prompting you with questions. And that's something that I kind of mentioned before in passing, and I know that you're passionate about it as well, is the circle of life. There's another name for it, I think, out there, but
there's 15 names for it. I found another one called Wellness Wheel or
Life Wheel,
whatever.
all of these.
It's essentially just a level of satisfaction for different areas in your life.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that one is really helpful because when you prompt yourself, I don't know that you would literally think of all of these parts in your life. Right. So we're looking at nutrition, we're looking at career, and we're looking at, some people won't even think about their career, although it's making them miserable. They're like, well, it's my job. What am I going to do? Right. So they don't even think that that's an important part. But a lot of things that will prompt you to think, if I isolate this part of my life, if I isolate relationships, which doesn't have to be romantic, right? Friendships. Am I meeting my friends as much as I want to? Do I love my friends, or do I just hang out with them because I kind of have to? All of these questions digging in will make you really kind of isolate each part and think and go, you know what? This part, I'm 10 out of 10. I'm super happy. I love this. I love, what I do in this part of my life. And with this section, I feel miserable. And so it gives you a little bit more of a direction on what to focus on, and maybe help you think of how you can move forward. So that's one of my favorite ones to do, and also to kind of have my clients look at. Super helpful.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I went through the interwebs and found all these different wheels. So for us, it was called the Circle of Life from IIN. I've seen Wellness Wheel, I've seen other things, but in general, it is whatever areas of your life you have. So this might be different for other people. So it really doesn't matter what exercise you find or what piece of paper you have. For example, so the one that I just have pulled up, like personal growth, relationships, fun and recreational, physical, mental health, finances, career, your physical environment, spirituality, so if you think about these different areas of life, and I think this activity is good because you don't need to take a lot of time to do it, or you could take a lot of time to do it.
Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can say, the only question you have to ask yourself when you're looking at this is, how satisfied am I in this area of my life? And according to your own scale. And I think that's important to point out, because when you don't want to be comparing your satisfaction with an area in your life with what society says that you should be, right? So for example, if you don't want to hang out with a lot of people, so your relationships bucket, maybe you have only 3 or 4 very good friends that you talk with, and that's it, right? But you feel like you should have more friends. Why? Why should you feel like you should have more friends? Are you very happy with the number of friends you have? Yes. Or maybe you have 1,500 friends, but none of them are really close, but you like this kind of, the point is, it has to be according to your scale of satisfaction, right?
Which is
If
where
you
the self-discovery comes into play.
Yes. So that's the whole point with these things, is to say, okay, from a scale of 1, I'm not satisfied at all, to 10, I am extremely satisfied. This area of my life could not be any better. You go through and rate yourself on all of these. You could have 15 of these areas. A lot of times it's coming like 8 or 12 different areas. But then you're right. This could help you, someone who's not sure where to start. The Circle of Life is a good exercise to start. Back to journaling though, I feel like, obviously journaling can fit in anywhere. But I think it's also a really low bar, and I think it depends on the type of question. So there was some interesting questions, but I feel like sometimes you can also take the same set of questions and ask yourself those questions about, your spirituality, about your physical environment. So you can find a good set of questions, journal about those things to help you go through the process, and then you can define your level of satisfaction in that area, and then keep it. You date it, put it away, take a picture, and then it is amazing, because if you start to then you start to work on those things, you start to do a bit of self-development and self-growth. 6 months later, you come back, you do a fresh one. You don't look at your old one, you do a fresh one, and you start again, and then you can compare those two. And that is a whole nother level of self-discovery, right? Because now you're going, okay, 6 months ago, I felt that my career was at a 3. But since then, I've focused on X, Y, and Z, and now I have different projects that I'm working on, or I can see that I have now a different career path, and now I'm feeling like a 7. I feel like when people can see a number change, it's somehow a little bit more real, or also gives the person the mental capability of understanding that they've grown, right? Or that they've changed. Because sometimes you're in your body. So change is gradual. It's like living with someone, and over time their hair gets really long, or they start to get a little fat or a little thin. You don't notice it because you're with them every day, but other people look at it and they're like, oh my God, your hair's gotten so much longer. And you're like, really? Is it that much longer? So it's the same thing for personal growth, I feel like.
Something important to say is that most likely, even if you don't work on these discoveries, your life would change after 6 months, right? What
Yeah.
we're doing when we're journaling, when we're doing the circle of life, when we're using any tool out there that is available for us, is that we're doing it more consciously. And so therefore we're trying to maneuver things in a way that we want them to go, rather than I'm feeling miserable about this and that. And then 6 months later, I'm feeling miserable, this and that, and two other things,
Mhm.
because it just kind of the rotten apple effect, right? So we're just feeling run down, we're feeling exhausted, we're feeling miserable, and now we're working out less and we're eating not as good and we're not sleeping as well because we hate our job and we don't have friends to talk to, right? So
Mhm.
it's just really kind of collecting that information can be helpful in a positive impact. Whereas when we just kind of go through life, we're living the life that is kind of being tossed at us instead of taking it by the balls. Pardon my French. Sorry, Mom,
Okay.
if you're still out there.
Another really great activities I'm going to say that you can do besides journaling, which I think is a great way, I would call reflection. The circle of life wellness wheel is about satisfaction with all your areas of life. The third thing that I think is really great are personality tests. And a lot of people hate personality tests because they're like, I don't want to be put in a box and blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I mean, you have to take it with a grain of salt, right?
Yeah.
Because personality tests, the reason why personality tests are important or a good, useful tool in self-discovery is giving you the right vocabulary to talk about yourself in different ways, right? So I think the one that personality indicator that most people know is Myers-Briggs. So this is a 4-letter, like introvert, extrovert, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember what all of the letters are, but you can look those up. I think most people do this either in college or in high school. And you kind of like, oh, I'm an INTP or whatever it is. And I seriously don't remember what mine is because there was no action after that. It was like, oh, when they did it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's me, right? The other one that's more recent that's come out lately, last year, a couple of years ago actually, is the Sparketypes. I think I've talked to you about it before, Donna,
You
but
sent it to me, yeah.
yeah, which is helping you figure out the essential nature of work that gives you meaning, feeling fully alive, fully expressed in a way kind of sparked, right? So on fire for work. So that personality test is focused on effort and work and what work brings you alive. We talked about love languages with Kelly, which is coming out in a new episode. And that's how you talk about your love, like giving and receiving love. And I also did a long time ago DISC, which is something that's used more in industry with groups to understand the dynamics between people in a group. People who are more dominant, people who are more conscientious, and things like that. And every single time you take, and then of course, Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies, which I absolutely love because this one is how you react to your inner and outer demands on your life. Like, are you able to, I'm a questioner. So typically when there an inner or outer expectation comes in my way, I'm usually questioning why. Why do we need to do that? Why should I do that? Right? And it has to be a good response. So every single time you do one of these personality quizzes is one little bit more piece of information that you can talk to your loved ones with. Like my husband and I we use love languages all the time. But also helps you understand what work you want to do and all these other things. So I don't know, what personality tests have you done, Donna, and what are your experience with those?
I probably have done most of the ones that you mentioned. The one that I'm thinking of that I've done lately was actually through FMCA. We did a test that was basically showing you your strongest characteristics, from the strongest to the least,
Is this the
right?
Strengths Finder? Is it the Strengths Finder one?
No,
Because
that
that's
wasn't the
another one.
name, but I'll try to find it and link it. But it was basically like, if your a strong characteristic trait is like humor, or empathy, or, it could be a list. I think there's a list of like 30 something. And what was interesting about that one is we talked about it was, of course you get the first 3 or 5 that are just, boom out there, that maybe some of them you didn't even think of as your strong characteristic trait.
Mhm.
But most people, what they do is they'll look at the first, and then they'll go all the way down to the bottom and check the ones that they're not good at, and then they'll just start beating themselves up about those. They're like, yeah, I don't have empathy, or I don't have humor, like. And so it's really funny to see how people kind of react to that list. But what I really enjoyed about that list is that I discovered for myself, I was like, oh wow, okay, great, yeah, this I actually knew was a strong trait of mine, and I do use it and utilize it every single day. But there are other things that I was like, oh, that makes me feel so good, because yeah, it's kind of true, but I wouldn't have said that I don't know. I don't remember which ones were mine, but like empathetic, right? I wouldn't have said that about me, but that feels so good to actually know that. And that's a characteristic trait that I can utilize for myself, to myself, and also externally to others. So, I think that one is also a really good eye opener, and just makes you feel good also, so it's a nice kind of like, oh, you're okay. Especially if you're sitting there going like, oh, I suck and my life sucks and everything like that. It's a really nice way to kind of like refresh that and go like, I'm actually an okay person.
Yeah. I think it also helps you feel seen and sometimes validated, some of these personality tests, to say, oh yeah, no, that completely, what this is saying about me is completely true. But you would never have been able to articulate that yourself. You know what I mean? Because number one, looking at yourself from outside is impossible, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you can say what you feel, and like you can see, say what feels good to you and what doesn't. But like, I find it interesting, when I left the company and people were giving me all these wonderful props. It's like, like as a going away thing, and oh, you're so great at this and you're so great at that. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, these people really think I'm amazing, right? But it's like, of course I knew I was doing these things, but you don't realize what sticks out also to people
Yes.
outside of you. And I feel like these personality tests, number one, are also a good way that you can talk to other people. You're like, hey, I just took this personality test and it said this and this and this about me. Is that something that you see? Like, and that's
Yeah.
another way to get started with self-discovery, which seems counterintuitive, asking other people. But that is something, unless you ask people for feedback about things that maybe you do to other people that are irritating that you don't know, that is self-discovery. Even if you're not discovering it yourself, you're asking somebody else to help you with that, right? But as soon as you know, like, oh, my partner, every time I do this, this rubs my partner the wrong way. Now, that's of course his reaction or her reaction,
Yeah.
right? But is that something that I can say, well, that's easy for me to change. I don't need to do that, or I didn't even realize it, right? You can strengthen your relationships in a way when you start to talk about your personality traits, what things you do and don't do that might impact those people around you, and those personality tests and things like that, especially the love languages. It's just a really great way to have a talking point, have a starting point to get that information from people.
Yeah, 100%. I find that, it's funny with the kids. A lot of times, they would come up to you and ask you a question,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, interesting. Or they'll say something to you like, you're the best mom because you do this and that, because they just saw another parent do it another way. And I think it's also like one of those things where you're sitting there and you're like, I'm the worst parent ever. I don't know many parents who are like, I'm the best parent. Like we don't do that. But like you always sit there and you kick yourself about how terrible of a parent you are and how broken your kids are. And then they'll go like, you're the best mom because you do this and you do that. And I can talk to you about this. And then you just sit there and go like, oh, this is just such rubbish. And then when you sit there and allow yourself to absorb that and appreciate it and go like, that's actually freaking true. And even if it's not, that's how this human that I'm raising is seeing it. And that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? Because that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. then it makes a huge difference. I think just being,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of bouncing back off of what you said with, your colleagues kind of giving you all these props, to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
We often get a feedback and we're like, oh no, oh, it was just because of like we're trying to give another excuse of why we were good at something.
Yeah, brushing it
Right?
off like, oh no, everybody can do that, right?
I'm
No.
not better than you. I'm like, no, actually, stop. You are better and you are good at this, and just take it and with loving, like loving
Yeah.
arms, hug it and just take it into your heart and just go like, that's true. I am actually, good at this, or I did that well, or, maybe I didn't raise a terrible human after all. All of these things matter, all of these things make a difference. It's just how we receive them and what we do with that information, I think, is really important, which can be true for feedback from colleagues to kids and to these tests that we're talking about here, which will help you to develop your own self love and self awareness, and self discovery, of course, to to just grow more as like to grow your own kind of self love within yourself. I think is kind of the
Mm-hmm.
gist of it.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think we're close to the top of the hour, and just to recap, um, so we talked about what self-discovery is, like kind of the definition, but also like really where it plays out in our life. We talked about why self-discovery is important to living your best life, and what benefits there are for knowing yourself better. And then we were just like jamming out on how to get started with self-discovery, which there are so many different ways to get started with self-discovery. um, I think now to kind of close it out, number one, if anybody who's watching this wants to talk with us about self-discovery, both Donna and I have, whatever free 25, 30-minute discovery sessions, and this can be part of that. So feel free to, hop over to one of our websites and do one of these discovery calls. This is typically something that we can, walk you through one of these circle of life, or at least get you started in a way. And obviously we are a delight to talk to. So do feel free to go and hit us up for a free mini session and getting started. And then we have some questions that maybe if you're watching now or later, you guys can pop into the comments. And of course, I couldn't limit myself to just one. But number one is, have you already started your self-discovery journey? And kind of what was your like impetus? What was your starting point, that your genesis that got you going on self-discovery? Was it some big major life event? Was it just, what started your journey? So that's question number one. Have you started, and what kind of started it? Number two is, could you share with us and with the other listeners which activity or thing that you did in self-discovery had the biggest impact on your self-discovery? For me, like I said, it was this 1 year of health coaching certification classes that had the biggest impact, because I was in it every week. I had different things, so it was very structured. And for me, that's what I need to show a big impact. But maybe it was something small. Maybe it was just one event that kind of triggered your self-discovery. And then the last question is, what's next on your journey of self-discovery, if you've already gotten this, or maybe you were ready to start. So if you're just starting your journey of self-discovery, I know that's a lot of questions, but I'm hoping one of those would be interested, and you guys can either email us a reply if you don't want to blast it out on social media, and so we know, just to start a conversation with us privately, or if you feel comfortable, leave a comment wherever you're watching this at or listening in the future if you're in podcast land.
Yeah, and if you have an incredible story that you're happy to share with the world and comfortable to go on a podcast with us, we would love to have a mini episode with you where you can share all that, and we can dig in there and ask all the nitty-gritty questions just to get the full story.
Oh, that's excellent. It's a very good idea. Cool. Okay. Well, we are at the top of the hour, and we will talk forever, but we do need to go and do other things in our life. Although it is sad. Oh,
one
yes.
more thing. if anyone is looking for a DJ out there, Megan is showing some incredible. You've been DJing those like things happening under our screen. Look at that. Look at that. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, if you're looking for a video DJ or hi Angie or any type of DJ, I think Megan has just incredible abilities here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for Fizzle.
Look, look, we've got Angie. Woo,
Hey
woo,
Angie.
Angie. Angie's on Central Time, so it's early, but she's
I
an early bird
know.
anyway. Anyway, we'll have Angie on the podcast soon. She's on our list. Angie,
Sweet.
let's get in touch. I'm watching
Angie,
you.
please get it going.
All right, guys, we will leave it there. So Danna, I'll see you soon, and everybody else, have a nice day.
Peace out, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye, Angie.
Bye.